I've been underwriting a few deals a week. Nothing I had to pull the trigger on, and I'm starting to get a better grasp of how to optimize the approach. Of course, it's going to get way better over time, but so I wanted to kind of discuss in detail kind of exactly what I do when I go about underwriting deals. Not necessarily like this is no I put this number and this number, but more of the overall process. I wanted to go over that. So the first thing that I do every Monday is I go to my web browser and I favorited all of the listing websites for all the brokers that I'm working with.
Yep.
Of course, whenever they have a new listing, it typically gets sent to my email, but not every single time. I'm not really sure why, but not every single one goes there. So I feel like I think that's a better for me. That's a better process because I can get them all at once. And so I'll check and I will look for deals that meet my investment criteria. So obviously I'll search for Tampa, and then I want to see deals that are over 100 units. And then typically for most of them, there's a small description describing what the opportunity is, and I want to see something about value add. Now, not all of them are true value adds, but some of them are, obviously like turnkey or super luxurious properties. So I don't want to do those. So I'll do that, and I'll sign all the confidentiality agreements and download all of the documents on Monday. That way I've got a list of properties to underwrite for that week. So this week there's only one. Last week there was two, and we'll see how many there are this week. I do know that things are slowing down now that we're getting towards the end of the year. So that's step one. Number two is I will, when I obviously have my schedule, so once the time comes, I will pull up the rent rolls and the T12s. And probably the most tedious aspect is taking those rent rolls and T12s in PDF form and converting them to Excel.
What's the best way to do that?
You just you have to understand how to you have to understand the if functions pretty well, because what'll happen is on the rent roll in particular, because the T12 is not that hard. You just unmerge the merge cells, and that's really it. But for the rent roll, the problem is they'll have the different rent codes. So it'll have the market rent, but then it'll have rent, pet, or parking, and they're not the rent is not necessarily directly next to the name. It might be a couple cells below. So you have to do an if function. You have to organize everything and then do an if function that allows you to put the actual rental amount in line with the rest of the information. That way, once you do that, you can just sort it and then delete everything else. So I just did it one time, and then I just copy and paste my formula in there. But it's still frustrating to do, because usually when you unmerge it from PDF, you have to reorganize the entire thing because all of the cells are merged, and so it'll explode out to like 20 or 30 columns, and you only really need like 5. And it probably takes about an hour to just reorganize that rent roll. So the first thing that my first hire ever in my syndication business will literally be someone to just help with underwriting. And obviously right away they won't know how to do rental comps, how to determine rental premiums, and how to figure out what the assumptions or really much of anything. But they definitely will be able to figure out how to do that part of the process, which is just inputting all the data into the cash flow calculator and then sending that to me so I can cut my time in half.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing that I do. And then
would that really cut it in half? Is that how much time you spend on it relative to other things?
On the actual, just the inputting aspect of it.
Okay.
And
okay.
It's handling the actual financial model, not, the in-person visits and talking to brokers, but just the actual financial model. I think it would cut the time in half. And most of my time would be just, doing in-person, boots on the ground stuff and talking to brokers to better the assumptions on there. But it is really annoying to do the rent roll in T12. Just so everyone knows that. And you'll have to get actually a paid version of PDF to do the conversion, or else you'll have to copy and paste it from PDF to Excel, which will probably take even longer.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, they already have it in Excel for you, but I'd probably say it's 50-50 Excel versus PDF. Now, one of the challenges that I was facing was, how do I determine the the renovation assumptions and the the rental premiums without having to do a full rental comp analysis and without having to visit the property in person. Because if the deal doesn't make sense, or at least potentially make sense, I don't want to spend all that time doing all that extra work. So right now, what I do is I just input the proven rents that they're currently getting, and I input the cost of the rehabs that they spent to get that rental premiums.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but now, so if they don't have that, I will go look at their rental comps that they have, and make sure they calculated everything properly. Use that rental premium, and then for the renovation assumption, I kind of just do it based off of my experience. And again, I know that this is not going to be the final number that I use. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want to be like, okay, I've got all the rent roll and T12 data in there. Now I'm going to go drive to the property, drive all the comps, schedule a tour, and then realize that the numbers were pretty similar to the pro forma and the deal doesn't make any sense. Because then I've wasted all that time. Right now, it's not that big of a deal because, I'm not underwriting that many deals. We don't have any deals under contract or under management, and I'm trying to learn the market. So there is benefits from going through that process, but I'm trying to think down the line. Okay, long term, I'm not going to be able to do full underwriting on every single deal. I need to find some ways to have steps where it's like, okay, let's do this, and then if it passes this step, I'll go on to the next phase. So I figure that that's the fastest way to make ballpark assumptions, just to see if you're even close to meeting the return that you want. And so
what numbers are you looking for?
So if I see for this process, if I see a 16% IRR or higher, then I will, or 15 to 16% IRR or higher, I will pursue it, because I assume these are like best case numbers, and it's probably going to go down. So if I see 15 to 16% IRR and then an 8% cash on cash return annualized over those 5 years, not including the sales proceeds, I'll move forward. But if it's in the single digit IRR and the cash on cash return is 5%, then I will not move forward, because it's only going to go down after I do my further investigations. Mm-hmm. So for example, the property that I talked about last week, it had a 18 or 19% IRR and like a 9 or 10% cash on cash return based off of this kind of these ballpark assumptions. Mm-hmm. But then when I went to the property, obviously the exterior renovation budget quadrupled, or I guess went up by 6, whatever that term is. So that obviously radically changed the entire model. But that was something that it would have been impossible to know without actually visiting the property in person. So that's something that you really can't cut corners on. But yeah, so those are the criteria that I'm working with now. So if it passes that step, the next step will be to visit the property in person, informally, so not with the actual broker. So I drive to the property, drive around on Saturday, drive around the grounds, and then I will go visit all the comps in person, do the same thing. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, what I do is I look at the subject property first, and then I'll go to the comps and ask myself what I need to do to the subject property to make it look like this. And then I'll go back and be like, okay, ballpark would cost X to get the subject property up to this up to the standard of this rental comp. Here's how much it's renting for, so here's what the new rental premium would be. And based off of those tours, I'll have a more accurate exterior renovation cost, as well as a more clear understanding of whether or not their rental comps were accurate. If they were accurate, great. If they weren't, then I will go out and find my own on apartments.com. Or while I'm driving, I also kind of make notes of, oh, this apartment looks like it could be a comp. And I also make a mental note in my head that this broker might in the future have comps that aren't correct, and kind of track it. It's either the trend in my mind, if it's a one-off thing, or if this is a consistent thing where they're kind of just picking comps out of thin air and not really doing their due diligence on them. Mm-hmm. So if it passes that phase, which the property that I toured last week did, then I will schedule a formal tour with my property management company. And my first tour, only the president was able to come, but they have a VP who is like their construction guy who kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
You verify the assumptions in the first stage with the management company?
No, I don't verify them until they actually see it in person.
Okay.
On one of the deals, I went and visited it myself and kind of explained what my ballpark renovation assumptions, and they helped me, say, okay, this one looks good, this one doesn't look good. But they were actually listing the property, or at least they knew the owner or the broker, so they had a good understanding of it. But maybe that would be something I should add to before I schedule a formal tour after visiting it myself, and I have kind of my budget, sending that to them, because I'm sure they know the deal is listed for sale. They know the area, and so they'll at least be able to help me with stabilized expense assumptions, as
Mm-hmm.
well as if I mention, hey, I plan on replacing the roofs and redoing the parking lot and adding in a playground. I think it's going to cost this much. What are your thoughts on this? Is it accurate? Is it inaccurate? Um, so that's probably something I'll actually add, because that will be helpful. So I'll visit the property in person with the management company and their construction guy to get a look inside the units, so we can confirm the accuracy of the information in the OM about what the current conditions are and what the upgraded units look like. And once I've seen that, as well as done a more detailed tour of the exterior, we're not going to have obviously the perfect costs for the interior and exterior, but it's going to be the best we're going to get before actually putting the property in a contract and doing due diligence. So at that point, I will go back and update my model again. And if the return projections are in line with what our investors want, so 16% IRR, 8% cash on cash return, then we will submit an LOI, which we haven't done yet. So we've done the first 4 steps. We've not gotten to step 5 yet. So I'm looking forward to my first LOI and kind of having more details on that process to discuss on following Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So the main reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I'm on Bigger Pockets a lot. A lot of people ask, what's the quickest way to underwrite a deal? My answer is always like, well, there really is no quick way. There really is no 2% or 1% rule for apartments, because it varies so much. And this is the most efficient way that I've discovered so far. And I think as time goes on, it's going to get even more efficient. So if I have certain changes or tweaks, I'll definitely make sure I bring those up on future episodes.